Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Directors meeting of April 4th, 2017. I'd like to welcome everyone who's here in attendance with us as we embark on doing the city's business. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the roll.
I'll take 10.
Director Hendricks. Director Richardson.
Here.
Director Peck.
Here.
Director Hines.
Present.
Director Wright.
Here.
Director Wyrick.
Here.
Director Campuris. Director Fortson.
Here.
Director Adcock.
Present.
Vice Mayor Webb.
Here.
Mayor Stodler.
Here. Let me call on Lance, our Director Lance Hines for our invocation, please.
Please bow your heads. Dear Lord, thank you for letting us be here today to address the matters of the city and our citizens. Please watch and protect over our folks in public safety, public works, parks, and everyone who works for the city. Please watch over them as they do the job of making us a great place to live. Please watch over our state and our nation for the following year. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. If you would, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get into the agenda, I have a proclamation which I'd like to read. Earlier today, with several hundred people around, we celebrated the Corporation for National and Community Service for a recognition day. And as you know, this is many different volunteer programs that we have in the city of Little Rock, AmeriCorps, Senior Corps, our NCCC teams that we've had here. Since we already did that, I issued a proclamation, and I'd like to read it for those people who are here in attendance or who are watching on our public access channel. And it reads as follows: Know ye all people by these greetings. Whereas service to others is a hallmark of the American character and central to how we meet our challenges, and whereas the nation's counties are increasingly turning to national service and volunteerism as a cost-effective strategy to meet city and county needs, and whereas participants in AmeriCorps and Senior Corps address the most pressing challenges facing our cities and nation, from educating our students for the jobs of the 21st century and supporting veteran and military families to providing health services and helping communities recover from natural disasters. And whereas national service expands economic opportunity by creating more sustainable, resilient communities and providing education, career skills, and leadership abilities for those who serve. And whereas AmeriCorps and Senior Corps participants serve in more than 50,000 locations across the country, including 20 locations in Little Rock, bolstering the civic neighborhood and faith-based organizations that are so vital to our city's economic and social well-being. And whereas more than 500 national service participants of all ages and backgrounds serve in Little Rock, providing vital support to city residents and improving the quality of life in our city. And whereas national service participants increase the impact of the organizations they serve, both through their direct service and by managing millions of additional volunteers. And whereas national service represents a unique public-private partnership that invests in community solutions and leverages non-federal resources to strengthen community impact and increase the return on taxpayer dollars, including more than $2 million here in Little Rock. And whereas national service participants demonstrate commitment, dedication, and patriotism by making an intensive commitment to service, a commitment that remains with them in their future endeavors. And finally, whereas the Corporation for National and Community Service shares a priority with city and county officials nationwide to engage citizens, improve lives, and strengthen communities, and is joining with the National League of Cities, the National Association of Counties, Cities of Service, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and mayors and county officials around the country for the Mayor and County Recognition Day of National Service on April 4th, Now therefore, I, Mark Stodel, the mayor of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, do hereby proclaim April 4th, 2017 as National Service Recognition Day here in the city of Little Rock. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and seal on this fourth day of April 2017. This is a very important element that's integral to the success of so many of our programs in the city. And I think it would only be appropriate to also point out that the budget that is before Congress right now that the President has submitted proposes to eliminate the Corporation for National Community Service, a program that was started in 1974 by President Richard Nixon, by the way. And I would urge people who want to make sure that these programs continue for you to call your congressmen and senators and let them know how important these programs are to the people in our city. It's so very, very important that they hear from you directly. There are so many valuable things that we've done with AmeriCorps, not only teaching our students with the city year kids that we've had here for many, many years, but our weatherization program and other programs that we've had. So I would urge you to pick up the phone, make the effort, take the time to make that phone call if you care to make sure that these programs continue. Thank you. Okay. We can now move on to the modification page, and we have, let's see, we have one motion and 6 resolutions to add that are being proposed to be added to the board agenda. Is there a motion?
So move.
Okay, I've got is there a second?
Second. I have a question.
Motion
on
and
the
a second.
I have a
Yes,
question.
discussion. Excuse me. If you'll turn your microphone on. Go ahead, Director Hendricks.
On resolution number 7,
Yes.
it says that they're going to extend, oh, gosh, thank you, to extend this, I guess it's a term that the Quapaw people will serve. And I want to ask Mr. Moore, can any other persons, not this time, but would any other persons be eligible to make this application and take care of Curran Hall? Not today, in the future.
Yes, ma'am. At some point, we're going to put out another bid, and yes, they will be allowed to bid on that.
All right, thank you. That's it.
Okay, any other questions? All right, there's been a motion and a second to add these to the agenda. If there's no objection, I'll add M2 through M7 to the consent agenda. All in favor of adding these to the agenda indicate by saying aye.
All right.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, they are added. We can now move on to the first item, which is M1. I do have a card on this. Mr. Moore, do you want to brief the board on this matter, please?
On M1,
M1.
the addition, the board had deferred this item until May the 16th at the applicant's request. The applicant then came back and said, due to traveling or previous engagement, that they would like it to be held on May the 2nd. So since the board had deferred it to May 16th, we need official action to add it to the May 2nd agenda.
And actually, Mr. Kaplan actually contacted me and indicated that there's something in his family's got a matter in Kansas City, and it causes him to be out, which is why he wanted to try and change it. It was not based on Mr. Ferguson's request, but actually his legal counsel's request. Yes, Director Adcock?
I know there's lots of neighborhood people, lots of different neighborhoods that are interested in this. I want to make sure as soon as possible that they're notified, because some of them had changed plans for summer vacations and different things to be here on the 16th. So I want to try to help Mr. Kaplan, but I also understand that neighborhood people who have made plans for the 16th. So could we very quickly notify them?
Well, if we
We will.
pass it. Director Richardson, you're recognized, please.
Yes, Bruce, on the same one. This is located within the extraterritorial, the jurisdiction of the city.
Correct.
And it fell 1 to 9, and staff's recommend denial. Did I read that correctly?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Robert Walker. Is Mr. Walker in the room? Mr. Walker, there you are.
Yes, sir, thank you. Is this addressing M1, the motion for the
Yes.
sewage plant? Sir, I'm opposed to one of these small sewage plants being
That, well,
installed.
we're not, this is just a motion, to move the date of the hearing on this matter from May 16th
So we get to speak at another
to May
time?
2nd, yes.
So I get to sit down.
Well, you can come on May 2nd if this passes and speak on the matter. Thank you, Mr. Walker. Okay, is there a motion, to move this matter to May 2nd, 2017? Is there a second? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed say nay. Very good, and we'll get the notice out then to all the neighborhood groups to make sure that they are aware of that change. Okay, Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the consent agenda along with the M2 through M7 resolutions, please.
The consent agenda consists of a resolution to authorize the mayor and city officials to execute any necessary documents to enter into a real estate purchase contract with Bartholomew and RBR Farms to purchase approximately 308 acres of land for use by the Little Rock Port Authority and for the purposes funding from the 2012 3/8 capital sales improvement sales tax. A resolution authorizes the mayor and city officials to execute any necessary documents to enter into a real estate purchase contract with Marcus Bryant to purchase approximately 50 acres of land for use by the Little Rock Port Authority and for the purposes funding from the 2012 3/8 capital improvement sales tax. A resolution authorizes a contract increase for Township Builders Incorporated in the amount of $390,000 for the Wright Avenue Bridge repair improvements and for the purposes funding from the 2012 3/8 capital sales improvement sales tax and the 2013 limited tax general obligation capital improvement bonds. A resolution authorizes the city manager to award a contract to JCI Construction Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $221,700 for sidewalk construction within the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes, funding from the 2012 3/8 capital improvement sales tax. A resolution to authorize the city manager to award a contract to Contractor Specialty Service Company in an amount not to exceed $281,072 for pavement markings within the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for the purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to award a construction observation contract to McClellan Consulting Engineers Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $100,000 for the 2017 street resurfacing program and for other purposes, funding the 2013 limited tax general obligation capital improvement bonds. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with Amco Equipment Company, LLC, in an amount not to exceed $48,822.77 as bid to demolish the existing walk-in freezer and to install a new freezer and concrete floor at the Little Rock Zoo Commissary and for other purposes. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into agreement with Bill's Fence Company Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $26,653 and Armor Fence of Arkansas in an amount not to exceed $41,251 to demolish and install several necessary fences at the Little Rock Zoo and for other purposes. A resolution to confirm reappointment of a member to the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, Heifer Project International Public Facilities Board, and for other purposes. A resolution to restate and confirm the appointment and reappointment of members of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas Residential Housing and Public Facilities Board, and for other purposes. A resolution authorizes the city manager to award a contract to James A. Rogers Excavation Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $216,794.50 for improvements to the West Central Community Center parking lot and for other purposes, funding from the 2012 3/8 capital improvement sales tax. A resolution authorizes the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with Global Perspectives Consulting, LLC, in an amount not to exceed $58,000 plus any applicable taxes to provide to provide and conduct a comprehensive cultural diversity and cultural competency training program for the Little Rock Police Department, and for other purposes, a resolution to set April 18th as the date of public hearing on the amended uses of the 2017 CDBG entitlement funds, and for the purposes, a resolution to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Resolution Number 13,118 of April the 20th, 2010, to ratify, modify, and extend the lease term between the city and the Quapaw Quarter Association to operate Curran Hall as a tourist information center, and for the purposes. That concludes the consent agenda.
There's a motion and a second to adopt the consent agenda. I do have some questions, but Mr. Carpenter has his hand up.
Mayor, on the last item on the modified agenda, what we have is a resolution to do these things. We weren't able to get the actual agreement into the proper format, so once y'all pass it tonight, we'll get it into the format and change it that way, but I wanted to tell you before you voted.
Okay, very good. Director Richardson, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Mayor Bruce. On a couple of these, there was clear description that we issued RFPs with respect to lowest responsive bidder, and there's a couple of purchases and for professional services, and one, I think, for actual infrastructure work, and it's not clear. So on those, we don't have a clear definition or a clear understanding that they're not RFPs. Are we utilizing sole source agreements or RFQs?
Director Richardson, the main way to differentiate, if it's a sole source, it will always be an ordinance. So all these are resolutions, which means they went through the proper bidding procedure.
So are those, we don't have a clear understanding or description that it was RFP, we can assume that it was RFQ?
Can you give me an example of which one you're referring to?
The one that have mention of it, the contract to the construction company to do the sidewalk construction.
Yeah, that was a RFP.
Okay, we just didn't have a description of Lois. Oh, we do have that on there. Okay, thank you, Bruce.
Director Hendricks.
Thank you. Mr. Moore, could you provide for me on resolution
I can't hear you.
Revolution number 3, since there has been a change order, will you provide that information for me, please, on the Wright Avenue Bridge? Telling me something and I'm not seeing it. Is it good?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Director.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay, resolution number 3,
Right.
there has been a change order on that, and if you would provide me that information.
Mr. Honeywell's here, and he can explain what happened there if you would
I want
like.
it in writing.
Okay, we'll do that. Well, it's actually in writing in your write-up.
Which one? Your
in-
report?
Yes, ma'am.
And
On the
that
board
was-
communication.
Okay, was that the one that was sent to us the first of the month?
It's Friday.
I didn't get anything.
It's on the agenda.
I think she put a box here, maybe that's what it is, because I didn't get anything.
Okay,
in
we'll send you a memo.
there. Okay.
Mr. Moore, would you elaborate for the board on the M5 resolution, please, dealing with the cultural diversity and competency training programs?
And when he finishes, I have one more.
Mayor, members of the board, we had been doing cultural and diversity training with our recruit school and with our police officers. But during Chief Thomas's tenure, as we began to talk about some of the issues that we saw that were coming up in the police department with our officers, I realized that, and it didn't. This doesn't have anything to do with them getting not getting proper training, but I felt it was important to have someone outside of the police department conducting this training. So we put out an RFP. Well, actually, we got a proposal, an excellent proposal from a professor at ULR to do this, and we were ready to move forward with it. And Mr. Carpenter in his office felt like in order to do a sole source, you're basically saying this is the only entity in town that can do this. And obviously that wasn't the case, so we had to go through a request for proposal process. The original one, we received 6 back in 2014. The committee met, to review the proposals and selected JCA. So JCA had been conducting this type of training since 2014. Earlier this year, we put out another bid for this training. Again, things have changed. A lot of things have changed since 2014 as far as what our officers are dealing with on a daily basis. So we included a lot of the cultural competencies, de-escalation type of training in this particular bid. Again, we got multiple bidders, and this company was selected.
Can you elaborate on how many hours of this type of training our officers are going to receive?
Let me ask Chief Buckner to come up and.
Mayor Stoll, Vice Mayor Webb, directors, Mr. Carpenter, Mr. Moore. The hours, it's roughly will be 2 hours of block of instruction for our in-service, which is the officers. There's also the command in-service that we do for staff, and then there's also coach officers and then recruit classes. Hours for non-sworn folks who are already with the agency will be a 2-hour block, and then the block of instruction for our recruits coming on will be 6 to 8 hours that they will receive.
And the first group you mentioned was 2 hours for which group?
I may have confused you. Recruits receive 6 to 8 hours. Everyone else will receive a 2-hour block.
At 1 2-hour block?
Yes, 1 2-hour block annually.
Feel that's adequate to deal with those various different kinds of scenarios?
I don't know what that number would be. I can tell you that the state requires that we receive 1 hour for officers and 2 hours for recruits, and we exceed in both instances. We exceed what the state requirement is because it's also a part of the ACLEA requirements for the state accreditation. You understand that we do our own academy, so we've exceeded that. But that's a common question that we get.
Mayor, the 2 hours is an annual thing for in-service that all officers go through. They take a week off of the street and do a 40 hours worth of classes. So this is 2 of 40 hours that they get that includes everything from recent developments in the law to how to fire a weapon.
Well, yeah, I understand what the 40 hours is. With the, obviously the increased review of what our police officers are having to do and the pressures that they're put under, I think the questions about de-escalation, cultural competency, some of those things, the question has really been, are they getting enough training in those areas? And I would hope that you will monitor that closely to make sure that if it is not, that we increase the hours of training. I think it probably does everybody good to get that refresher, and once a year, maybe more frequently even, I would suspect sometimes would be helpful.
Well, there are a couple of things, and I agree with you 1,000% in that we should always be continually assessing where we are, what the needs are, what are best practices. As you know, we are state accredited and also CALEA accredited, which is international. The state requires us to do 16 hours of annual training. We do 40. The requirement to become a police officer in the state of Arkansas, the state gives you about 400 hours. We do about 900 hours. So we're far exceed what the state requires. We well within the realm of what CALEA requires, because there are a lot of challenges in Little Rock that maybe a city that has 2,000 people can get away with 16 hours of training. We don't feel that that's adequate for the challenges that we face. But we continually monitor that. We always want to make sure that we're hiring the right people, that we're training them in the right way. But I think that the setup that we have here is adequate considering what we're facing.
Okay, Director Richardson, you're next on this list. Do you have questions on any item?
Yes, thanks, Bruce. Thanks, Mayor. Chief, this is more for Bruce rather than you. And Bruce, my question is, do we not have that capacity internally with the RCDC? Or is it that they're not set up to do that kind of work? They don't have that kind of function as part of what they're set up and designed to do?
Well, originally that was my intent, to have them do it, and I believe they conducted some training and then said that they just didn't have the capacity based on everything that they were working on and doing. But they have participated with the recruits in the past, but that's when we decided to go out with a request for proposal because they felt they didn't have the capacity to conduct the training.
And that came from them?
Correct.
Okay, well, it seems to me like we should be able to do that internally, but if they say they don't have the capacity, it's a way for us to save $58,000, but if they don't have the capacity, they don't have the capacity.
Any more
Okay,
questions?
thank you, Chief.
All right.
Thanks, Chief.
Director Hendricks, do you have? Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I want to finish, I think, on the sidewalk. I wanted to ask Mr. Moore, do we still have ex-offenders that participate in the program that had to deal with sidewalks?
We do.
So will this be a part of that,
This
number
is
4?
separate. I mean, we've got, and y'all know, I mean, we got so many requests. I mean, we're just now dealing with, we're on 2012 requests, so this is an attempt to, and we have some sidewalk money through the 3/8, so this is an attempt to get more of these requests done. And if I could go back to one of the questions about the training, I think it's, we talk about de-escalation a lot, and you get that throughout your 40 hours. That's in a lot of different blocks. That's just not in that 2-hour block that we're talking about the diversity issues. We failed to mention that. You get that throughout, including the recruits. That's something that is taught throughout the 40-hour requirements for our current officers, and then the number of hours that our recruits have.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry. Do you want to hit it again, please? Director Richardson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Bruce, one other question, 2 other questions actually. On the reentry program, sidewalk program, are we still doing 5 or 6 at a time? Do we have a number on that? And do we have a cumulative total that we've done over time since we instituted that?
Are you talking about number of
Participants.
employees?
Yeah,
No, we average 10 to 12 in addition to the right-of-way team that we started, and we have 8 on the right-of-way. 8 to 10. So no, yeah, we keep at least on the sidewalk about 10 to 12, and then on the right-of-way mowing that we started, and those are all reentry. They're about 8 there also.
So they become actual employees of the city?
And this is very interesting because the goal of the program, if you remember, was to teach a skill, and then they would go out. We'd help with resume writing. We had classes and everything, and they would go out and find private sector jobs. And you look at the unemployment rate in Little Rock is very low, so there's opportunities. But what we have found is they feel like the city is a great place to work, and they're not moving. So then it takes them, then they're in a rotation with their other colleagues in Public Works because you have to work there a certain number of years that we've talked about before you become full-time. But I don't move those folks ahead of the other group. They just sort of get in line. Sure. So we have a lot of them that do still work for us. Some have left and come back. So I could provide you a report about the numbers.
I appreciate that. And one other issue on the diversity training, seems to me like I heard you make reference to this training only happening to the recruits. Is there any kind of ongoing training once these people are hired on the force?
Yeah, I didn't, if I said that, no, this, as the chief mentioned, each officer, Tom mentioned, each officer has 40 hours of annual mandatory training, and they get this training also.
That's every year, that's annually.
Correct.
And is there a limit in terms, Chief or Bruce, a limit in terms of how many years that we feel like they've completed this training, or is this ongoing process?
Every year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have one card that wishes to speak on issue M5. Vincent Tolliver.
Good evening, Mayor Stoller, directors, certainly my director, Director Hendricks, who we are all very proud of in Ward 1. We absolutely adore. My question is brief. Global Perspectives Consultant, can anyone tell me anything about that company?
Mr. Moore.
Sure, let me ask Lieutenant Cook or.
I'm interested because it appears that they are not Arkansas-based.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. City Manager, Mr. Moore. Global Perspective is a company, cultural diversity and competency company out of Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Pull that microphone a little bit more closely.
It's out of Colorado Springs, Colorado. It is staffed by numerous professors, also a retired chief of police out of Colorado Springs.
Thank you, that's really all.
Okay.
Well, the concern is this, in a brief look at the company's website, the concern for me is that their staff itself does not appear diverse, and that these people are conducting this diverse training. And so I'm wondering if anyone else other than myself is concerned about that. And in addition,
We don't generally engage in a dialogue back and forth, but I'll ask if anyone wants to respond. Director Hendricks?
I'm glad that you're here. You're asking those of us who are about to approve it. Who have
yes,
already
well,
approved it.
yeah, well, so if you're about to approve the bill, the first thing I would suggest you look at is companies within the state, number one, who are capable and who provided this training before. And then number two, if you're going to go outside of the state, you certainly should be paying attention to companies that are diverse themselves if they're conducting diverse training. And that's really it.
I agree with him. We sit here. What's your name, young man? I know you. I know you. You're in the
My name
family.
is Vincent Tolliver.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Stay up there to the mic.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell?
I think Vice Mayor
I want
Webb
him to
just
tell.
pulled it up.
I'm not finished. I'm not finished, whoever you're talking to. A young man,
Yes, ma'am.
tell me a little bit more about what do you think we should do?
Well, I think we certainly should look at companies in Arkansas that have a history of doing this sort of training, first and foremost. And then second, if we're going outside of the company, we certainly should be going to companies that we couldn't necessarily get in the state. And certainly, we should look at the team members of the company before we're talking about awarding an outside contract, because there are people in Arkansas that can do the same work.
I agree with you. Mr. Moore, what do you say to that?
We have I think, a very strong procurement process. And
Do you
We-
know? Do you
we-
know as much about this company as this young man has told us?
I mean, I don't sit on the review committee. There's a diverse committee of city staff members that reviewed all of the proposals. We understand what we are looking for as far as we put out a requirement that says, here's what you have to provide. We don't say, One, it's not limited to Arkansas companies. Arkansas companies were allowed to bid, obviously. And then since 2014, we've had a Little Rock-based company doing this work.
Mr. Morton, I'll respond to you by saying, a lot of us just vote. We really don't know anything about these people. Maybe that may be something. Tom, what are you frowning about?
I didn't know I was frowning, but Director Hendricks, the thing that strikes me is that this city has taken a fairly bold stand saying we're not going to discriminate in the award of any contracts based on a number of factors, one of which is race. And so,
But I think
If
he
the-
spoke to the experience that these people have.
well, and that's why you don't do a position like this on the low price. You do this based upon qualifications, and the manager makes sure that the committees that are selected know what they're looking for and know what they need, and then they make a recommendation.
What I'm going to suggest to you, young man, is that if you will sort of be sort of like an eye person for us and let us know before we vote, because see, we voted for this, I think. So since you're a constituent of mine, I need all the help I can get
Yes, ma'am.
to raise questions up here to some of these people, okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Director Wright, you're recognized, please.
Well, my question was going to be for the manager about the RFQ that went out about this and how many responses that we received. And did we have a review committee? He's responded and said, yes, we did have a review committee. I don't know how many applicants.
Sure. Lieutenant Cook, our chief.
There were a total of 6 companies that put a bid in. The final assessment was done of 2 that actually qualified per the 80% requirement in order to be vetted, to be for consideration.
Okay. And that committee,
The committee that selected those individuals was made up of 1 black female, 1 black male, 3 white females.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Director Richardson, you're recognized, please.
Yes, Mayor, we'll stay on this. Bruce, not for you, Chief, but Bruce, back to not making any judgment or disparaging remarks about the successful bidder. I want to go back to the process. When these RFQs are written, they come from Tom's office, is that right? Who writes the RFQs and what kind of information is put in there? And then also, what's the advertising process? Somebody said, did everybody apply? What's kind of advertising process that we utilize to get the word out and information out that these kinds of services or supports are needed and available?
Well, the first thing we do is, if it's a Little Rock-based company that has that it deals with this type of work, they get a notice to let them know that we are advertising this type of service. We also, all of our bids are online, and then some are in the newspaper. I don't know if this was in a particular newspaper. And then the process is the department, and whether it's in this case, the police department or public works or community programs, they sit down and talk about what are the needs. We have a new a purchasing manager, a new purchasing procedure in place. And so there's certain questions that were included to ensure that they have experience in this area. So it's put together mainly through the department and through the purchasing department. And then the purchasing department handles the bidding procedure and accepts the bids.
Thank you. So, not that you need any more on your plate. Does your office has final say-so or look at all in terms of content, the process, or it just stays within the department that it's issued from?
It depends on what we're procuring. In this case, the chief and I talked a lot about what was important as far as what we were looking for with, again, think about how the world has changed so much since when we first started doing this. since 2014. So there are things that we have learned through the President Obama's 21st century policing that we ensure that were included as far as training, the automatic disqualifiers that the chief is looking at. So we're constantly researching and looking for best practices. So I think we put out a good product as far as what we were requesting, and I think we got a very valid bid.
Yeah, I'm sure we do, and I think that this company, without doing any research that has done, I think they're well qualified to do it. They went through the process. But going back to my other question, you made one statement that those that we know, and I'm assuming that we're not all knowing, there's some other agencies or entities out there that we don't know. So with those, are we utilizing just the print advertising in the newspaper, online, or are there any other kind of methods we're utilizing?
What I said, remember, in order to give Little Rock companies sort of at least a heads up, if you've got a privilege license that talks about you do this type of training or you have this type of service, you get a email from our Treasury Department that says, oh, by the way, the city is advertising for this service. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to bid on it, but at least the Little Rock companies are aware of it.
So what methods do we utilize for companies that are not Little Rock based, may not even be Arkansas based?
Mainly online. I mean, these type of companies look at this work throughout the country.
And over time, has there been some sort of evaluation to see if this is the most effective way to get the quality and number of applicants that we want to have part of this process?
We very seldom only have one bidder when we go out. So I think that says in a lot of ways, we're doing a good job of getting the word out. And these, again, most cities have been doing online bids. We just, as part of our legislative packet, just got an act passed to accept online bids in now. We used to turn them in with paper now, but so now, I think we do a good job of getting the word out.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. In that qualifying process or judging process or reviewing process, I know we certainly look at what their qualifications are, what kind of capacity they have to do this, but is there any consideration or any review given to any past evaluation, any past work that's been done, or any kind of contact beyond just that initial review committee?
We do ask for references.
All right, thank you.
Director Adcock, you're recognized, please.
Yes, Director Wright has pulled up this, and I would like for the people to know that they do have a diversity among their staff. Because people sitting at home would wonder, well, did anybody check it? And Director Wright has checked it, and there is diversity among their staff.
Pull that microphone closer, Director Adcock.
Yes, I said Director Wright has pulled up their site, and it does have diversity in their staff.
All right, Vice Mayor Webb.
Well, just to add to what Director Adcock said, it looks like 3 of the 5 principals either have PhDs or writing their dissertation in this field. And as we've said, there's been a lot of changes in the last few years on this. It's an incredibly impressive group of people.
Director Hendricks.
Since the ball kept rolling, my last comment about the comment that the young man made, I think we need to be cognizant when people come and tell us, because, Mr. Moore, would you supply whatever this was of that applicant that applied for this, the list that we're talking about on the sidewalks?
You want a copy of their proposal?
Their resume, everything. And we need, to, at some point or another, we're going to have to really look at some of these people, because I have questioned the 10 years I've been on this board. A lot of these people I would not have hired.
Okay, thank you. We can now move on to a vote. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda? All in, what? All in favor of the passage of the consent agenda indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Director Hendricks is voting present on the consent agenda. Very well. It passes by a vote of 9-1. 9 yeas and 1 present. can now move on to citizen communication. And we do have some cards. Ms. Shanna McCoy?
Good evening, Mayor and Directors. What I want to talk about is public safety and public transportation. The key information right now, or the problem that I have a 19-year-old son who pretty much does not really commute by city bus because the bus has changed on our route, especially my street. However, two issues has occurred. Last Friday and last Thursday, my son's life was threatened. He was walking from Broadway and Glenview Lane to Lynch Drive, and he was followed in a truck by three gentlemen who identified themselves as neo-Nazis. That is a big problem in especially in North Little Rock where I live. The second matter is at the bus terminal, Rock Region Metro, where he's always harassed by homeless men because he wears heavy metal T-shirts, he wears mohawks, because he talks different and he speaks 6 languages. I have to sometimes escort him because his life has always been threatened, and there was a gentleman who threatened his life on last Friday. I have brought this to the bus company on more than one occasion, and I will say thank you so much to Sergeant Christopher Scott, because he's been a mentor to my son, and he's always been there when there's been a problem. But this is a big problem, and my son has complained and asked questions with whom within the company that he needs to speak to. But this is a big problem, and not all young men that are 19-year-old walk around with their pants hanging down. I raised my son the correct way.
Well, thank you, Ms. McCoy. Did he report the
Well,
the
actually,
threats to the
I
police
called
department?
in. I called in. We have not heard anything from the bus company.
Oh, no, did you
this-
call the police department?
Well, I didn't call because it's always an issue within that community, and especially on that particular
If
topic.
you don't call the police department, they have no way to follow up and investigate.
Yeah, but they never really do anything because this is an ongoing matter.
I suspect the chief is here. He probably would take issue with you about whether they
Well,
don't do anything.
we've had issues in the past, especially in North Little Rock. Nothing has ever done anything about it other than, if it happens again, call us. But the issue is that at the travel center where homeless men are harassing him.
Well, if you will call Jared Varner, who is the director of Rock Region Metro, and visit with him, he can probably take care of that from an administrative standpoint. But if you don't call the police, there's no way they're going to know about it or be able to investigate it.
Well, I've spoken with Mr. Varner on more than one occasions. I've emailed and I've actually emailed Mr. Moore on several occasions about matters regarding the bus company. But just because you're at the bus terminal, you shouldn't be harassed.
And let me just say, Lieutenant Dyer, who's the lieutenant for downtown, is here, and he'll get your information and also follow up.
Okay, thank you.
The next card I have is from Carl Hines. Carl Hines, Mr. Hines. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Board, members, classmates, golfers. I'm Carl Hines. I go to the neighborhood meetings when I can, and Mrs. Stephanie called me this morning and told me that come to the meeting because they were trying to locate the homeless out at Granite Mountain, and I'm here and to oppose of it, because now, as long as I've been in Little Rock, I know where the homeless are. I know how they operate. You have some smart people that's homeless, and they're homeless because of different reasons. And I would like, if you could, do somebody interview some of these homeless and see how they feel about it, because if you take a bunch of homeless people and put them together, you're gonna have problems. And the only homeless we have close to us is right there built shop, because they live in the woods there, and they go over to get food and stuff like that. And they like to live close to where the restaurants where they can get food and stuff like that. So I would consider and try to check something, because I know some educated ones. I know some guys with college degrees, and they're homeless for different reasons. Some veterans are homeless for different reasons. So they're human beings like we are. And that's why they're homeless, because they don't like to live close together. I can show you a whole lot of places to live. Warmer, all out there. They got dogs and things. You don't know the homeless, but I know where they live. I've talked to some of them. You'd be surprised how smart some of them are. But I'd just like to think, instead of locating them out there, how they're going to get back and get food, because out there, it's predominantly black. They can't get any food, any help, or anything like that. They like to be close to the restaurant. But I'm just here just opposing of getting some land and putting them all together. Because when you put them all together, they're going to be stealing and fighting. And you have ladies out there homeless too. And you have more problems and stuff. So I would like to see just, as long as that's trashing and stealing and robbing, you know, because I know a lot of them, you don't know where they live. They're living close by you. And I know where they live. But anyway, that's what I'm just opposing of, just find a place. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Hines. Director Hendricks, do you have a comment for Mr. Hines?
Yeah, but, yeah, come on, Carl. Would you tell them, you all contacted me because there was an article in Sunday Before Last Democrat Gazette. So tell them what you're speaking on, and that's why you're here, you all are here.
The homeless?
Yeah, the homeless, the article that was in the
well,
Sunday's paper. She can tell you, she can tell you. Springer.
Springer could tell you more about it because,
I'm going to call on Ms.
all I
Springer
know-
if we get finished with Mr.
All,
Hines.
all I know is that they were, at the meeting, they said they were trying to locate them out in that area.
Right.
And I was just opposing of it, but I was just suggesting to see that, interview some of these homeless and see how they feel about putting them together. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, Gloria will give you the topic. Thanks, Carl.
Thank you, Gary.
Okay, Gloria Springer?
Vice Mayor and City Board. My name is Gloria Springer. I'm from the neighborhood of Granite Heights, or Granite Mountain, in Ward 1. And there was an article in the paper. And at our last neighborhood meeting, we had a person who came to join, actually. He was another minister. We have 6 churches on Granite Mountain. And he was wanting to help. And we don't want to have a tent city. We don't have a bank. We don't have very much in Granite Mountain. We have a Kroger and a Dollar General, and we have a highway that goes straight through our neighborhood, and you've seen us, you've been there before, and now we have more senior citizens because we have a senior residence on top of Granite Mountain. We have a mixed-use property with 3 different types of incomes in there, and that's working out well, but the neighborhood is becoming more and more senior citizen. We have Watershed. We have Union Rescue Mission. We have a place where homeless can come and clean up. They have meals. And we have Safe Harbor, which I'm really not sure what Safe Harbor does, but I do know on the weekend the fellas take out walking through the neighborhood to go do their shopping. But we have children. We have one little playground. Most people don't know where it is because it was built when I was young. And people don't let their children run across Interstate 365 anymore. And so at the meeting, we decided that we wanted to let the city know, as you consider housing more people in need, please don't consider Granite Mountain. We are helping, we don't mind helping, but we cannot sustain another increase of people in need. We are in need. And that's what we wanted to tell you. The president of our neighborhood association is Stephanie Fields, and she's serving somewhere else right now, and she did call the team up, and that's why Mr. Hines was here, and that's why I'm here, is that we just cannot maintain more homeless. As I said, Safe Harbor is all men, and they live in a gated facility that children have to see that, and we have to bring that to their daily consciousness, that these people in need are here, they are grown men, and we have that. Then we have Watershed, where many different types of people come on occasion to get help, and people bring help to Watershed. They disperse food, they disperse clothes, and they do Christmas, they do all kinds of things. And anybody may know what Union Rescue Mission does right at the railroad tracks into our area. And there are people gathered there daily to eat. People gather at the facility across the street to clean up. So we have the indigent community, and while we care about them, if it did come up that we need to house homeless or tent city, not in Granite Mountain. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Springer. Mr. Moore, would you ask staff to give us an update on what that level of discussion is? Provide us a report, please. Okay, the next card I have is from Dr. Anika Whitfield. Dr. Whitfield?
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Board of Directors. Sorry for the sad looks on some of your faces, but this is a happy occasion. We have a community celebration and appreciation that's going on this Sunday, April the 9th. And I particularly wanted to invite those 6 board members that voted for the resolution. We are asking you to come out. We're going to have food, community fun, and we want to honor you for what you've done for the neighborhoods for the city of Little Rock. It'll be at MacArthur Park between 2 and 4 p.m. And if it is raining, the Children's Library and Learning Center has also offered us their facilities on the bottom level, and so we'll carry it there if it's raining or if the grounds are wet. So we hope that you will be able to come out on Sunday. Director Webb, Wyrick, Wright, Hendricks, Richardson, and Peck, we hope that you definitely will come out and join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Whitfield. The next card I have is from, is it Shay Thompson? Shay Massey Thompson?
Good evening, Mayor, and city officials, and Board of Directors. I'm coming this afternoon because of harassment at the bus terminal. I am a minister, and I've been doing homeless ministry for 4 years. This is my 4th year. And I go to the travel center to be able to help the homeless. I've been in and out of doing ministry in shelters, so therefore I know the ins and outs of what these people are dealing with. My motto is, if you can't be part of the solution, it's no need of talking about the problem. And I tell people all the time, I tell them that people don't care how much you know, but they need to know how much you care. Every time I go to the travel center, I'm harassed. I'm always asked, are you catching the bus? You need to leave. And I'm not, they always saying I'm lottery. So since I've been going down here for the last few months, I've been discriminated against because a police officer told, he made a comment because there was a guy that was there, that was this past week, that raped me a year and a half ago. I panicked when I saw him. And so he made the comment, his name is Officer Moore. He made the comment, so what? You've been raped. So I made a comment, I said, well, sir, if that was your mother, your daughter, your cousin, any female in your family, how would you feel? And he told me, you're going to catch the bus. You got to get away from here. I said, but you're not concerned about how I felt, because that was traumatic in my life. That really was. To see him again after these years, and he went away scot-free. Nothing happened. He was arrested and released in 1 hour. But I've got to live with that. Even family members didn't want to be around because they thought I had HIV. So that's very traumatic to me. That may not be to anybody else. But I try to help homeless people because I know that they need somebody to show some concern. I work out of 5 ministries. First of all, I don't even have time to do no lottery. I do youth ministry, I do elderly care ministry, I do women's ministry, and I have a ministry, Praise Tabernacle. So I don't have time to lotter. I go down there and I may walk with one of the women there, but she doesn't have sense enough to open her mouth to let nobody know that I'm down there to walk with her. And I'm kind of tired of it. I really am sick of going to the travel center being harassed because all I'm trying to do is help. That's it. I've been banned from some of everything, but these same homeless people I'm trying to help, they don't want to hear nothing about no word of God. But I said, like I tell them, in order to be relying on the resource, you need to start looking to the source. That's where you need to look to, because all this other stuff can be eliminated if you only would give your heart and your mind to Christ, that you could be alleviated from all of what you're going through and all like that. But I tried to help. I'm a person, I serve. I don't want anybody to give me nothing, but I try to give everything I can to try to help people. And because of that, I've got to be harassed. I was told that if I'm going to talk, I need to go across the street where they smoke. I've been told what to say and what not to say, and that's invading my freedom of speech and my religion.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Mr. Moore, if you would visit with Mr. Varner and find out what kind of security we have at the travel center, please. Let us know, give us an update. Very good. Okay, that concludes the.
I have a light on. Can you see?
Go ahead, Director Hendricks. Well, no, go ahead. Yes.
Thank you. I wanted to comment when Ms. Springer was there, Gloria, and you said for Mr. Moore to bring you up to date, but your name was included in that article, so you don't know anything about it?
I don't know anything about a tent city,
2
no.
Sundays ago, Mr. Moore, would you look in the business section, and it's an article about this long that talks about Granite Mountain, the purchasing of some lots, and the building of a home for homeless people. And my phone rang off the wall. I had to go get the paper and read it for myself. I should have brought it tonight, so check the paper so you can help the mayor.
All right, we can now move on to our grouped items, groups 9 and 10. We might as well go ahead and separate these. I have cards on item 10, so Madam Clerk, if you would, please read ordinance number 9, please.
An ordinance to amend Chapter 36, Section 36-513 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas to restrict the parking of certain motor vehicles in the right-of-way in residential zones for a period exceeding 24 hours and for the purposes. First reading.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules and place this ordinance on second reading. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Second reading, please.
An ordinance to amend Chapter 36, Section 36-513 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas to restrict the parking of certain motor vehicles in the right-of-way in residential zones for a period exceeding 24 hours. Second reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place on third and final reading.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules and place this ordinance on third and final reading. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Third and final reading, please.
An ordinance to amend Chapter 36, Section 36-513 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas to restrict the parking of certain motor vehicles in the right-of-way in residential zones for a period exceeding 24 hours. Third and final reading.
Okay, thank you. If there are no questions about this item, all in favor of the passage of this ordinance indicate by saying aye. Opposed say nay. The ordinance is passed. We can now move on to ordinance number 10. Let me ask for first reading, please.
Second reading. Needs
Oh,
a
excuse
motion
me.
and a second to put it on.
Second reading on item 10, yes.
Motion and a second to put it on second reading. Do we need a motion and a second? I need a motion and a
There's
second.
a motion to place this on second reading.
So move.
Second.
All in favor of placing this ordinance on second reading indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Second reading, please.
An ordinance to approve a plan zoning development, establish a planned commercial district titled Little Rock School District, Southwest High School, Longform PDC, located at 9715 Mapleville Pike at the intersection of Mapleville Pike and Sibley Hole Road, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for the purposes, second reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place on third and final reading.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules and place this ordinance on third and final reading. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Third and final reading, please.
An ordinance to approve a plan zoning development, establish a planned commercial district titled Little Rock School District, Southwest High School, Longform PDC, located at 9715 Mapleville Pike at the intersection of Mapleville Pike and Sibley Hole Road. Third and final reading.
Okay, we have some cards that wish to speak against this item. Let me call on Karen Baldridge, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Mr. Moore, and directors. I'm opposed to this ordinance. However, we have worked with we've met with the Little Rock School District and the architects, and we had a list of concerns, and they seem like they are able to meet all of those. So for that, I'm very pleased. But I do have just a couple more concerns. The main one is the traffic. There's already a lot of traffic on Mapleville Pike, and I'm just wondering if a traffic light would be better than a roundabout on Sibley Hoe. Also, there's a buffer mostly of 100 foot, but it goes to 50 foot, and I think it should be 100 foot all the way around. And the last thing I have a concern with is there's 48 parking spaces that are very close to the neighborhood, and I feel that's a problem. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Baldridge. Elizabeth Peel.
Yes, I represent also Mapleville residents. I as well oppose, however, I am for progress, and I know we can't change that. But I do have safety issues also with those 48.
Pull that microphone closer to you,
You
please.
can't hear me? I do have an issue with those 48 parking spots because they do basically not buffer, but hit them, they're right behind the Mavis Circle residents, and that concerns me. The loud music and so on and so forth that will be played more than likely past the hours of 8 o'clock. We're older people in that area, and it does bother us. We're able to hear, we're old folks, but we can definitely hear that kind of stuff. But I do have other concerns that we did speak with the Little Rock School District, and they were awesome about it too. I also oppose the 100 feet and the 50 feet of the buffer that they're asking to give us. I would prefer that they go ahead and give us 100 feet all the way across versus the 150, or maybe even work with us, maybe with the 75 at that point that they are going to do the 50 feet of dense tree line. The other thing too is that I guess my biggest concern is with the Little Rock School District or the Southwest New School is that I do, and I appreciate the fact that you guys want to do a newer and better and bigger and have these kids be proud of what, you know, we can do for them. But I'm taken back to 1982 when J.A. Fair first was established. And now you're shutting it down, I guess, in order to merge J.A. Fair and McClellan. And if I'm not mistaken, J.A. Fair first came from McClellan because of the student population that you guys had. So I'm kind of confused, you know, with all this, that you guys are merging them again when they were once merged and removed from site and put in another facility. And it's only taken less than 35 years, you know, for them to go ahead and say, okay, let's go ahead and just merge you and put you in a new division, a newer and better school, and let's see what we can do with that. I'm just concerned about that. I'm concerned for our safety. I'm concerned for, you know, the disrespect of our community that will occur. Just like any other community here, you know, what's happening here at Granite Mountain could be happening in Mapleville at a later date. And I don't want that to happen. Mapleville is a strong little community. It's a hideaway home for a lot of people and nobody really knows how wonderful it is. And I'm afraid that you guys are going to really, for lack of a better word, screw it up by bringing in all these kids all over again when 35 years ago you removed them and placed them in another school. So I'm all for progress, and I'm all for education, but the kids need to know and learn respect, first and foremost. It starts at home. It doesn't start with the police officer. It starts at home with the parents on both sides, and the police officers can go ahead and patrol that, and us as parents, as community residents, we can go ahead and also stand up to that and be witnesses to what we ought to be responsible for and what kids can be responsible for. Unless you start teaching them at a young age to respect, you got diddly squat. So I'm just saying, you know, I'm all for progress, but I really want our Mapleville residents to be awarded and be protected also. So if we're going to be put on the map by this big school, then I want something to happen to our neighborhood and be protected by it also. So,
Very good, thank you.
All of you, thank you again. Thank
Director
you, Joan, thank you, BJ.
Director Hendricks, do you have a question or a comment for Ms. Peel?
You have a question, sorry.
Turn yourself off.
Did I understand you to say that you are expecting us, you referred 2 or 3 times to this board. Were you aware we can't do, we have no control over the school district?
No, I know that, but I know that you guys can police our area in that one section. It looks like we're surrounded by the Little Rock School District, except for that one section of Mableville Pike that we're being left basically to fend for ourselves on that stretch
What are you asking us to
of
do?
road. I just want to make sure that we have community, involvement. I want to make sure that the police are constantly patrolling that area. Days of leaving our doors open are long gone. I was able to go out and drink my cup of tea last 2 days ago, thinking, come May 9th, I'm not going to have that ability any longer because of the constant motion from 6 to 6 a.m. to p.m. on Mondays through Fridays on whatever they're going to start doing to erect this school. Saturdays, my understanding, from 6 to 7 p.m., 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., they're going to be working. That's if the millage goes through. And my Sundays from 1 to 6, and then God knows what else along the way that comes through with these kids that are going to be coming,
So your
the area.
conversation would have that you want us to defeat this? Is that what you're asking?
I'd say yes, but I know that progress has to go on.
Thank you.
I have one other card, Dr. Whitfield.
Thank you. I'm just curious about the establishment of the zoning for this area. I know the Little Rock School District has a millage that's coming up May the 9th, which the resident made reference to. And in that millage, it promises that Southwest Little Rock School will be built. And so I just want to get clarity. Is this ordinance asking for permission to build a building where the Little Rock School District has already promised the citizens that they can build a building? Is that what this is asking for? I'm wanting clarity on that.
Yes. I mean, this is a motion, is an ordinance to approve a planned zoning development that will allow Southwest High School to be located at 9715 Mableville Pike, which is the intersection of Mableville Pike and Sibley Hill Road.
So, Mayor, I can read pretty well. What I'm asking you is, was this area not already zoned for a school to be built?
It was not. That's why it's before you.
Right. And so the promise that the citizens of Little Rock are being asked to vote on is a farcity because you all have not yet voted to approve that this land could even be used for a school.
Well, and that's what's on the agenda tonight.
Right, but
If the vote is to approve it,
the request
then-
of the Little Rock School District to ask for a millage, and Director Hines, I know it's been a long night and I hear you sighing, but I'm a citizen that pays a lot of property taxes, and so I'm trying to find out with what I'm being asked to vote on. I'm being asked to vote on today before you guys vote on this. I'm being asked to vote on property that is not zoned for a school to be built on at this current time.
That vote is on May 9th, so
Right.
But I think.
But I already have some patients who've already voted on this because they were not aware.
Vote is for the bonds to get the monies to be able to
Extended.
pay for a high school.
And
This
it
is
says
where-
in Southwest Little Rock.
This is where they want it to be, but if this is not approved, then they can put it someplace else.
Well,
They still
And
need
so
to make
that's a
the-
good point.
No,
I want to leave
that's
that point
incorrect.
open.
That's incorrect.
Okay.
So I would like our planning director, Mr. Bazinski, to come forward. The majority of that property out there, you can build a school on right now. This is to deal with some access issues. So Tony, if you would come forward, please.
Thank you. And Mayor, I'd like an opportunity, once we hear from him, if I have some more questions, to be able to come up and ask, because I understand my questions aren't timed. Is that correct? Okay.
that's correct.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the board, if you look at the graphic in front of you, that crosshatch area is what's being proposed for this new school, which is approximately 61 acres. The greatest percentage, probably 95%, 96%, is currently zoned C3 general commercial. The C3 district allows a school by right. With this proposed site plan, there are the two entrances into the school, the southern one and then the northern one, the main entrance. That property is zoned R2. So that's, and then with the site plan that they have is multiple structures, multiple buildings. So we felt to address all that at one time to go through the plan development process.
Tony, do you mind addressing a couple of the other issues, the parking spaces and the buffer issue?
Yes. Well, if we can stay on the zoning map for 1 minute, Mr. Carter, you can see right directly adjacent to Mavis Circle on the property in question, there is a 100-foot zoned OS area, open space.
Is that the area etched in black?
Yes, that area is reflected on the site plan, if we can go to the site plan next. The sketch, excuse me. So the Mavis Circle neighborhood is that area that's right there where the cursor is, and then directly east of that, for a majority of that area is that 100-foot open space area, or buffer in this case. Reference was made to 48 parking spaces. Those are broken up into or areas of 24 spaces adjacent to the softball field and also to the baseball field. They are oriented towards those fields, so you have the 100-foot buffer area, then you have a drive, and then the parking spaces. And again, they're pointed towards the fields. And I would assume because where they're located, their use would probably be limited to when they have activities at those two fields. And Mayor, was there something else that was brought up?
Well, there was an issue of a roundabout.
Well, the school district had Ernie Peters do a traffic study, and through that traffic study, and Mr. Honeywell can probably go into more detail, but it was determined that for this type of development that the roundabout would work or function better than a traffic signal. And that's at the main entrance with Sibley Hole and the northern entrance to the school.
Okay. We got some directors who may have some questions for you or comments. Director Hines, you're first, please.
I'm going to reserve my comment. 24-hour rule, Mayor.
Director Adcock, you're recognized, please.
Yes, I do not have questions of Tony. I want questions of the applicant, please.
Okay, question for the applicant.
Either Mr. Adams or Mr. Poore or Steve.
Who is going to be representing the applicant here? Mr. Board, welcome.
Mr. Poore?
Yes, ma'am.
The other night when we had our meeting, you was not able to attend.
Correct.
But we had a whole long list of items, and the neighborhood has worked through all of those with Mr. Adams and with Steve and the other staff that was there, except we're down to 2. I cannot ask you to do these 2. Mr. Carpenter would stop me. But I think these 2 are very important to the neighborhood. One is these parking places, and you can see the before here. Can I have the zoning map, Mr. Scott? The zoning map. I don't think some people understand how close these houses are. This OS here is 100 feet, but then it goes to 50 feet. And the neighborhood had asked that 100 feet extend all the way up to behind their houses. The people in Mavis Circle have very long lots. I would imagine they're an acre in their lot. So these houses right there in Mavis Circle are very close to those woods. And so they was asking for 100 feet there. And those parking places, Scott, if you can go back to the other map, please. Those parking places, people will be coming after a ball game. And Scott, if you'll show those parking places on this map, please. Right there by the green. They're coming out of a ball game where people are excited and everything. They're going and getting their car. Remember how close this is to Mavis Circle, because they'll be slamming their doors, they'll have radios on, they'll be laughing and everything, and their homes are right there, their bedrooms are right there behind the parking places. There are some trees and everything, but you know, loud noise carries fast, particularly in the wintertime or the fall. These are the two things the neighborhood have come down to, is parking places and the 50-foot buffer being extended to 100-foot.
Mayor, am I okay to respond now?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and also thank you, Director Adcock. First off, the buffer zone was extended as a part of the meeting that took place, and so we are agreeable to extending that buffer zone.
Thank you.
And so that is something that we will go ahead and do. The parking spots, just to add a little more clarity on that there, again, there are 48 spots. Those are for both the baseball and softball field. The baseball and softball fields, in terms of competitive, when you see those type of vehicles, those are happening in this, only the spring is when those two sports compete. So there is a little more of a limited amount of access onto those fields, other than if we rented out the facility. So I do want to make a point that could happen in terms of renting it out in the fall to some community group or something that might want to have it there. We did keep the trees. That was a part of our presentation to all of you when we talked about this the first meeting, to try to keep as many trees along the perimeter to also cut on the buffer and create a little bit more of the buffer in terms of the noise, and I appreciate you bringing that up, Director Adcock. But we do think that this plan it does as much as we humanly possibly can to support the neighborhood and cut down the noise. And if there's other things that we can look at in terms of solutions, we're probably open to that.
Are these cars going to park facing the ball field or facing the homes?
Well, you know, cars will, I couldn't tell you that I could guarantee that. You know, I know that some people park the direction that would be facing towards that neighborhood, is my guess. But, so I can't guarantee that one way or the other.
Because if they was parked the other way, their lights, when they turn them on, would not be
Would help.
in the
Yes, ma'am, I
neighborhood,
agree with you.
And that would help. Also, I think, if I'm not mistaken, those parking places are not all together. There's some space in between them, and staff had said that some fencing could be put up at that place. Was that added to your application?
That is correct, that we will do that as well, just as we said at the meeting with the community that shared that.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Director Wyrick, you're recognized, please.
Well, Joan beat me to the punch. She already covered all of the sticky points that we had from our meeting. It was a very good meeting. I don't think we followed the agenda. In fact, tonight's the first time I saw the agenda. It was a very active group. There were a lot of people that appreciated what the school district's trying to do with this new and improved school on this property. And as Joan said, we got down to these two issues. One of them's been removed. The 100-foot buffer has been added. My question, and the parking spaces, I know people maybe not appreciate how much noise that cars parking, getting in, turning on loud music, people laughing, horns going off, those kinds of things can impact a neighborhood. I'm wondering if there's a way to, it just seems like there's a ton of parking that's to the north of where this place is. If you don't have enough parking already there to take care of at least one of these strips of parking, particularly the one that is just adjacent to Mavis Circle. That would probably be, what, 24 spaces? Yeah, by the softball field. It just seems to me that you've got a ton of spaces already, and it's still close to the softball field. But I just think that that would be a really a great thing to do for the neighborhood. You have taken into consideration a lot of their needs and trying to make the future for them a little bit better. We did talk about the roundabout. I think Mr. John has convinced us that the roundabout probably is the right thing to do at that location as opposed to a traffic light. I was a little bit nervous about teenagers and how they might maneuver through a roundabout, but everybody tells me they're smarter than old folks, so they'll do fine with it. But anyway, that was my worry, the remaining parking spaces and the loud noises that they would hear from that.
Mayor, are you okay if I respond to that?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you, Director Wyrick. One thing, just to make sure that everyone understands that we have set up a situation also to help out with the neighborhood in terms of just traffic flow after hours to be able to close this campus down so that access will not be able to come into the campus unless they do something breakthrough or whatever. So we are shutting down the campus so that you can't have traffic coming in there at 1 and 2 in the morning, zipping through this area. And we will be agreeable to moving a bank of those parking spots to, again, find middle ground with everyone to try to make it a better situation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Poor.
Yes.
I appreciate you doing that. I think that'll make their lives much nicer. They're shaking their heads back there. Thank you very much.
Okay, Dr. Whitfield, did you have anything else you wish to add?
And so I guess one of the things that Tony illuminated for me is the fact that, yes, most of the facility is actually zoned for a school, but in order to actually access or be able to get into the school, this is what we're really voting on. Is that, and I just want to get clarity. Is that what we're saying?
Well, it's a planned zoning development, which means that the staff recommended to the school district that the entire area of land be planned and zoned, which is why you see this fairly elaborate layout of what the school is. So it is prompted by virtue of the access issues, but it is a rezoning very specifically to the sketch that you have in front of you.
So the C3 designation, will it remain that, or is it going to change to something else?
Be a planned zoning, it'd be a PZD.
PZD, okay. And so I guess my next question is brought up, and I think Tom's not there anymore, but Tom brought up an interesting point, and that was that if this didn't pass, that they could move or find other places to put a Southwest Little Rock school. And I'm just interested to know, and since Superintendent Poor is here, what other places he might have in mind to place a school in Southwest Little Rock other than this location?
Can I clarify what I was saying?
Okay, please do.
You were asking what you were voting on in the school election.
Right.
And I was merely pointing out that the school election is to provide the funding for a high school. This is where they want to put it. If something happens and they can't put it there, that has nothing to do with funding for a high school. That doesn't suggest that there's another place they want to put it, can put it, have thought about putting it, or anything of that nature. I was just making the simple statement that you're voting for the funds to build a high school. That
Right,
the
and-
place is not part of that
And
vote.
I understand your point.
Right.
But if you actually read, and I know you're an attorney, but if you actually read what the bond issue says, it says in Southwest Little Rock. And so my question is, if not there, where in Southwest Little Rock?
Well, let's
It's a
see
very-
whether, I think we'll see
Right.
whether this passes or not, and if it doesn't pass, then that question might be relevant.
Okay, and so the last question that I have is, and BJ, I think you were the person that I watched the City Hall meeting that night that brought up the fact that it was very important to ask the residents in that neighborhood and community, and I commend you on that, because I think that before we ever talk about locating anything in any neighborhood or community, the impact that it has on those neighborhoods is very important. And to allow the neighbors, I mean, we've heard neighbors say that this is a very hard decision for them, a tough decision. They're more concerned about the students than they are, in fact, for their own conveniences. But we also heard some neighbors saying that they were concerned about not only their safety, but the safety of the students and the residents while construction is going on. And so I think it's always important to include the people that things are being zoned or rezoned for. And I'm very familiar with the process when we changed Confederate Boulevard to Springer Boulevard. I walked the streets and talked to everybody on those streets. And so before you even take it to the Planning Commission, you want to make sure that you have already vetted the neighborhood and community. So BJ, I thank you for kind of redirecting and stopping the process to make sure that the neighborhood was actually involved in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Whitfield. Director Hines, you recognize, please.
I think the question's been answered, Mayor. Thank you.
Director Campiris, did you, if you want to hit your microphone, please.
Thank you. I'm always impressed at how we represent neighborhoods, and I think BJ and Joan do a great job of doing that. But I want to remind people that this master facility plan was actually passed by the school board that was in existence at that time. On January the 22nd, 2015, they actually wanted $375 million to put it on this site and a millage increase at that point in time. There were 48 community forums that selected this site. So the thought that this has just haphazardly fallen into this site, it was well thought out, there was community involvement, and the amount of money that will go into this is less than they were asking for, and there will not be an increase in the millage. So, you know, as things happen, and as we work our way through, things, then a lot of times, because we are diligent in looking at things like BJ and Joan were on this, we end up with a better product. So I think we're at a good place.
All right, thank you, Dr. Pierce. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Mayor, we need to amend the ordinance. And I think Tom's been working on some language regarding those parking spaces.
Right.
And the buffer, I guess, the buffer?
The buffer's already.
Buffer's already included.
It was included?
Right.
Dr. Whitfield, we're finished with our public discussion.
Okay, I just wanted to follow up on something that was not quite clear, but that's fine. That's fine. We'll leave it as it was.
Thank you.
Maryland,
Mayor, am I not able to ask a question based on what he said about the millage?
No. Our public discussion is over with. Certainly, he'll be around to ask him a question about that later, but I think he's pointing out historically that there's been lots of discussion, lots of meetings in the past about this basic piece of property, and previous discussions about what it might cost to build a new school there. And it sounds like as time has evolved, we've been able to be a lot more effective in not only constructing a school that's going to take care of the children that we want to take care of, but also do it without asking for a millage increase. So that's obviously very important to people. All it does is extend the existing millage. All right, Mr. Carpenter.
yeah, Mayor, I would put it at the end of section 3. I'd put a comma. That's the section that deals with the approval of the final site plan. And just put a comma, including the removal of 24 spaces closest to Mavis Circle and to the extension of the 100-foot buffer. That was what was discussed by Mr. Poore. If he wants to offer those as amendments, that's where I put it.
Thank you, Mr. Moore and Mr. Carpenter, for clarification and helping clarify what I have already agreed to. And so I would approve these amendments to support the concerns that have been brought forth tonight, and the district is behind that.
Very good. Is there a motion to amend the ordinance? There's a motion and a second to amend the ordinance to the language that Mr. Carpenter just recited. All in favor of the motion to amend indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The motion is passed, but go ahead, Director Hendricks.
Met and I let you by with it. Okay. My question is to Attorney Carpenter. Have you talked to Tony or whoever drew this up initially, or do you have to talk to Tony, or have you talked to Tony?
I did
I'm
talk.
talking to Tom. Tom.
I did talk to them about where the language would be that would accomplish what he said that he was offering.
And he's acceptable to that?
I am, yes.
Okay, that's, I said, I don't get up and jump because the other monkeys jump, you know. Okay, thank you.
Director Hines? Director Richardson? Do you have a comment?
Yes, Mayor, I do. before we get to that, one simple matter, Tom, with respect to the amendment of the parking issue, I think one of my colleagues had concern in terms of which direction they're gonna be parking in. Can we mandate to have a sign that say back in only?
No.
I mean, I just, so we got, or front end on, all depends on what that director's preference is. I got a touche right here next to me. She might not want y'all to know that.
All right, the question's been called on the ordinance as amended, and there's a second to it. All in favor of the approval of the ordinance as amended on item 10 indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ordinance as amended has passed. Very good. Director Hines. We are finished with the formal agenda.
Mayor, I have,
Voted on the amendment, but we haven't voted on the.
Yeah, we did. We voted on both.
we voted on both. Mayor, I have 3 items I'd like to go over real quick. Bruce and Mayor, this panhandling in the median, I continue to get calls on it, discussing with the city attorney. We do already have an ordinance in the books that makes it illegal for them to panhandle. And I'm seeing it all over the city. I travel the city every day. There's no particular corner. It's just as prevalent in West Little Rock as it is downtown, in Midtown, even up Southwest, even at my office on Roosevelt. In fact, on the median at Chenal Parkway in Markham, they have worn the grass off the median. I mean, it's a bare spot for 20 feet. Bruce, I'm asking, and here's the thing. We've got an ordinance. It's not being enforced. I understand that LRPD is busy, but they roll by these locations daily, and I would ask that you direct the chief to order his officers if they see panhandling going on in the median, if they're not on a call or not headed somewhere, to instigate at least getting them off the median. And documenting them. The other question is, how do we advise citizens to report it? I get reports that they're becoming aggressive, that they're getting in the roadway, obstructing traffic. So how would you, do they need to call 911 to report it? How do we want citizens to go about reporting it? The second thing is, one of the solutions, and when I have this conversation with folks, could we put together a PSA for panhandling, just advising our citizens, and also the one thing we talked about with Tom, it's also illegal to give money out of a car to somebody in the median. Correct, Tom? We've also got an ordinance on the books for that. So maybe we need to start writing, do it both ways, write some citations to folks if the officer sees it happening, and put out a PSA. These folks wouldn't be on the corner doing this on the median if they weren't getting money. And I would advise, we've got several homeless organizations that work with the homeless, and that's where the money needs to go. Most of these folks, and I even had somebody said that over on that Markham and Chenal, they followed a guy to his truck, got in a very nice truck and headed off. And I think maybe even some of them aren't homeless. They're doing this as a second job or a nice way to get some tax-free income. But it's reached a fever pitch, and I don't know why it's become so heavy. It started this winter and has gotten worse. So if we could address that. The other last thing involves 911, and I want to give the credit on this to our Democrat Gazette reporter, Chelsea Boozer, because she brought up the idea on her story about 911 and long wait times. Could we see about doing some kind of PSA, and I'm sure our local stations will air it for us, on the fact that when you call 911 to not hang up. It may take a while for them to answer, but they will answer, because the consequences when you hang up is our 911 operators are going to have to follow up by law and call back. So, there's some factors that go in that when you're on a cell phone, sometimes your cell phone rings 3 times before it actually even rings in dispatch. The other thing is that if you call in and hang up, when you call and you call back, you're at the end of the line. So if we could advise with our public works to do some type of PSA and get it out there, I think it would help. It would help with response times. And I even had a friend of mine had his car stolen this weekend. I told him to call 911. What did he do? And I've had the conversation with him. Well, I called non-emergency, couldn't get through, so I called 911. They didn't answer, so I hung up, and then they called me back. And I said, quit hanging up, stay on the line. So I think we need to do some public education on 911, on the panhandling. And, this goes back to, and Director Fortson and I were talking about how New York City used to be. Crime-ridden, infested, and what they did when they started out was they started out enforcing the little laws, the little things, spitting on the street, littering, that kind of thing. And I know our police officers are busy and they think they've got higher priorities, but I think it leads to greater causes. If we're going to tolerate panhandling in the median, it leads to other things. And I think I think our citizenry is requesting it, and I would say everybody up here has probably heard from folks. We're hearing it from our citizens that they're getting accosted at the travel center by homeless or people panhandling. So I think we need to do something to address it. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Director Wright, Director Hendricks, you're next, please.
Pass.
Director Wright.
Thank you. Mr. Moore, while you were out, I requested that the right-of-way crew cut and clean along 36th Street, and people cannot use the few feet of sidewalks that we do have. And I need it cut, cleaned from Boer Park Road at least down to Catherine. It's just grown up sidewalks. You cannot, probably walk on a snake. You walk through there like that. And because we have a lot of people that walk to that grocery store. If we want a walkable community, yet we don't provide a safe way for them to walk to the store. And I would also like for your public works staff to give me a cost analysis for including a pedestrian walkway across that bridge at Rock Creek. Because I'm seeing more people in wheelchairs trying to get to the other side so that they can get down to the City Market grocery store. So I'd like a cost analysis on that, and I'm prompted by what was in our agenda tonight on the amount of money to replace the other bridge here, that on Wright Avenue. If we can pay for that one, we can pay for the one on 36th Street. People need to have access to the grocery store, and everybody doesn't have a car, and a lot of people do walk down there. And I'd like the sidewalks to be extended from that bridge down to connect to where City Market is, and that would get people out of the street, holding up the traffic. Also, I saw the report that you gave on the bus service at Carti. Whose responsibility is it to have sidewalks down from Barrow Road to the Carti building? Is that our responsibility to provide the infrastructure for that? Because that was mentioned in the memo that there was no way for people to even walk down there. And if it is our responsibility, I'd like a cost estimate as to what it would take. And also some type of assessment of how much it would be used. Do we have a lot of people that need to walk that way? I know we've heard from folks that's saying that the bus doesn't drop them off there, but I need to be able to compare what it's going to cost with the amount of usage. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Director Adcock, you're recognized, please.
Mayor, I'd like to invite the board to come Saturday and Sunday to Southwest Community Center. We're going to have the Guatemala consulate there. We'll be seeing several hundred people, and I think you all would enjoy coming and seeing how we assist several hundred people with things that they need from the consulate from Guatemala. I know some of you will be busy Sunday afternoon with the affair that Ms. Whitfield invited you to, but after you go to that, if you can, please come by Southwest Community Center and see what's happening. Thank you. One side of that's in Spanish and one side's in English, so maybe everybody can read it.
Director Hendricks, you just turned yourself off. You turned it off. No, if you just won't touch it.
Okay, here's what, I'm looking at the last line of the agenda that Mr.
I'm getting ready to mention.
Oh, well, that's what I have a question.
Okay, Mr. Moore.
And because a lot of people do watch this, and Director Richardson had some very specific questions about how we advertise and get the word out on our bids. I mentioned a few of them, but the other ones are we use the Arkansas Mississippi Minority Supplier Development Council. We send all of our bids to them. We also send it to the Southern Regional Minority Supplier Development Council, and we also send all of our bids to Director Hendricks.
What? Since when?
Since you've asked,
As of today?
since you asked about a year ago, probably.
Get anything.
So there must be something wrong with your computer, Director Hendricks, because we send them all.
You know what? I don't use that black thing you got. I don't use that thing. I use my email at home. It's the same email, but I don't get it. You ready?
Okay, on April 4th, the suggestion has been made to recess this meeting tonight to April 11th for the purpose of the finishing up the city attorney evaluation. Is
that's my
that all right with everybody?
My comment.
All right.
I turned my light on. I told you that's what I need to talk
Your
about.
light's still on.
Okay, well, you somebody is all right, everybody. My comment has to do with, I may not be here. I may not be here, and I would strongly be voting for Mr. Carpenter.
You may not be here. Well, that's three of you then that are not here. I just heard that Director Peck and Director Fortson will not be here on the 4th.
And I support Mr. Carpenter.
Well, all right. I think if three are going to be gone, that it really should not be conducted then. So
Well, I support
we'll
him.
try it on the following. We'll try the following meeting.
May I have something to say? No, I'm still talking. You don't want me to whip you, do you? The thing that I would like to say, I think it's unfair, and would you all want to be put off like that for an interview? I think it's unfair, and I think that going into almost April, 4 months, and he's worked 4 months already, I support him if I'm not here, and I think that that's what we need to do. We kept Mr. Moore, so let's keep Mr. Carpenter.
Thank
And
you, Director.
I have told him I don't want to hear them, whatever it would be in that executive meeting, because I may blow a top. Okay?
All right. Well, we'll wait and see.
I won't be there.
We're not going to do it on the 4th, or excuse me, on the 11th. Director Hines.
Second.
A motion and a second.
Yeah.
Tom, you're not listening, and it's dealing with you. All in favor of the motion to adjourn indicate by saying aye.
All in favor
Opposed,
of
say nay.
Tom to say aye.
We're adjourned.